You saw this program, I assume.
Yes, I watched it live.
You mean at one point it was actually living? I thought it was DOA.
I watched it as it transpired.
All right. Well, the DOA was a little inside joke there, because the opening match on this past Wednesday's AEW Dynamite on Wednesday night was a coffin match, not a casket match, because that's trademarked. A coffin match with Brody King against Darby Allen. And obviously, Darby is not an undead zombie. Darby has a finish called the coffin drop, because he launches himself backwards off the top rope like he's laying in a coffin and lands on the guy. So that means we have to have a coffin match. They had a match first, didn't they? Yes, that's right. They've actually had a match this time.
Yeah, I think they did.
Because usually these stipulations are the first match, but in this case, it's a rematch. And obviously, a coffin match is no disqualification. Lazy booking. But we didn't even get to start the coffin match actually legitimately, because Brody King makes his entrance, and they're so scared that all the normal people watching The Big Bang Theory will see what the fuck is this and change the channel, that Darby jump starts it from nowhere. As soon as Brody King gets in the ring, Darby is there, and he's beating the shit out of us with a skateboard with thumbtacks sticking in it.
And sticking out of it.
But sticking in it, sticking out of it. How do you get a thumbtack to stick out of the skateboard, by the way, anyway?
Perhaps they're glued to the skateboard. To the skateboard.
To the skateboard? To
the skateboard. The state should be here. No, perhaps they're glued to the skateboard.
Yeah, this guy should be boarded by the state. I'll go along with that. And Brody King gets juice within 30 seconds. And not just a little juice. He's gushing. And I'm thinking, can they possibly narrowcast their program to a smaller target audience? And I don't think that the key to keeping the viewers from The Big Bang Theory is by running people through a razor blade factory immediately afterwards. So then Brody King throws Darby into the crowd, but he comes back, and Brody is bleeding everywhere, all over people, fans slinging blood, and Darby gives Brody King a sunset flip powerbomb off the top buckle, and then pushes him out to the floor, and then goes out there, and Brody King responds by just running Darby Allen into the guardrail. And Darby is taking the bump where he'll just launch himself, flip upside down, and hit the railing full force with his entire body flying in the air. And they did this in numerous spots in the match. And Darby, what's your backup plan when you hit that railing and it goes into the fucking kid's face and their looks are harmed for life and they sue, and Tony Khan ends up washing their fucking dishes for the rest of his life? So both guys are just drenched in blood, but it was all Brody King's, I think, although the way that Darby was taking bumps out on the floor, he could have cut himself open on anything. And then, like I said, they were out in the crowd spurting blood, going to the break. And then during the break, apparently, they set up a table on the floor, because as soon as we were back from the break, I'm talking like within 3 seconds, Brody King does a splash off the top rope through the table because Darby moved, and straight to the fucking floor. And I'm surprised he didn't break both of his arms, because he had him down. And so it's 10 minutes into the show and we are full garbage. They're going through tables in a no DQ coffin match. Blood is everywhere. And then Darby gets in the ring and puts a table up in the ring, and the lights go out. And it takes forever, as usual, because whether it's the talent or whether it's the walkthrough, or they don't do it like the WWE does it, where you can lights off, lights on. Wow, how'd they do that? It's lights off. By the time the lights come back on again, the whole arena could be empty. Somebody could have picked everybody's pocket. And then Malachi Black and his little sidekick buddy are at ringside. And to quote an old friend of mine, God, the House of Black are tiresome. So Darby looks at the heels standing on the floor. And he's in the ring, and he looks at the heels that are on the floor, and then he turns his back on them and runs the other way to the ropes to run back across the ring and dive out and try to dive out on them like they were stupid enough to stand there and wait for him. But when he hit the ropes, Julia Hart comes from under the ring and trips him, pulls his leg. And then both the heels on the floor just get in the ring and kick the shit out of Darby Allen in front of everybody. In front of the referee, in front of the fans. It's no disqualification. But when you're making it this literal, then why did they even start the fight? Why didn't all the heels just come down at the start of the match and kick the shit out of Darby and throw him in the coffin instead of waiting until their guy was a fucking almost bled out? And it's the wrong kind of heat. It's like when the 15 heels beat up The Undertaker at Royal Rumble 93 and put him in the coffin. It was horrible. People just sit there because it's totally not right in any way. But they kick the shit out of him, and they take forever, and then they lean a table up, and they put Darby on it, and Brody King cannonballs him through the table in the corner. And then everything grinds to a halt, and the people start chanting for Sting. And then Malachi Black points to the coffin, and their friend Buddy opens the coffin, and Sting is in the coffin with a bat where he's been hiding while three heels, unopposed, beat the shit out of his friend. He could have come out of the coffin with the bat and stopped them, but then that would have robbed everybody of the cool visual when they opened the coffin. So remind me not to be Sting's friend if I'm getting a shit kicked out of me by three people and he's got the opportunity to make a cool entrance. So then Sting beats up Buddy with the bat and then hits Brody King with the bat, and then tosses his bat to Malachi Black. And Malachi Black stands there and holds the bat, looking at Sting, and then laughs and drops the bat and walks off. Now, meanwhile, there's still a match going on, but it hadn't been going on because everybody's laying out of it so that they can do this dramatic rendition of a fucking horror movie that they dreamed about when they last ate Taco Bell. So now Malachi Black walks off out of the ring, and Sting gets out of the ring to go after him, walks right past Brody King, his friend's opponent that's on the floor, and Sting and Malachi Black get face to face on the ramp. Julia Hart has completely disappeared. Buddy, I think, is gone. But now Darby comes back to life as soon as Sting leaves the ring and hits a dive on Brody King. But then Brody King picks Darby Allen up and body slams him on the steel stairs. But then Darby Allen punches and chokes Brody King with his chain that he wears around his neck and hangs him, and then lets go, and Brody King takes a bump off the apron, pirouette, kind of a nice little deadman bump, into the coffin. The lid closes. Boom. Did I describe that match fairly closely to what you saw, Brian?
Fairly closely. I mean, the only thing I'll say is that when it first started, I really hated it. And then I thought it was so gruesome. Then I started thinking, just like you said, how's the network going to stand for this? The opening match and the close-ups of Brody King's face were really gruesome. Yet the show would get even more gruesome now that I think about it.
Yes.
But then they got me. They kind of had a point in the match where they got me. They were hitting each other really hard. And I was into it, and then the lights went out, and they lost me. And they never got me back. And you know what? I think people like Malachi in the ring. They like his kicks. They like his style. I don't think too many people like this and want to see this. And he has, from what we last heard, 4 years left on his contract?
Oh, good God. I didn't even think about that.
They got to transition him and, if you want to keep these other guys, them away from this House of Black thing into something that fits with the rest of the wrestling show.
I don't think they're capable because apparently this is this Malachi Black, his long-awaited chance to do what he wanted to do in the wrestling business. And this stuff is what he wanted to do.
Did you see the Miro promo? Well, we're going to review the show, I'm sure.
Well, we ain't there yet. But this thing, at the end of it, I said, no wonder that there are no more wrestling fans left. There are smart marks, and a lot of them are in the locker room, but there are no wrestling fans left. People who just want to watch wrestling. People who don't want to fucking know every goddamn detail and what everybody's doing and what happened in the indie show on such and such day. Because you can't be a fan of this. It makes no sense. It's repetitive. It's stupid. It's fake. It's phony. It's silly. It's smart marks. And most of them apparently are in the locker rooms these days. But there's no wrestling fans left because of shit like this. Plumber Moxley was next. He slurred and snarled about Pain and Jericho. Has anybody given him a cognitive test? I will ask this again. When he checked into whatever facility he checked into, or when he does a regular physical examination, has anybody bothered to say, just follow the shining light with your eyes, anything? So he's apparently in the main event tonight going to push Chris Jericho's fighting spirit or his body to the breaking point, just like he pushes our patience to the breaking point every week when he wrestles. And then Jericho had an answer in the back about Plumber Moxley. Did you notice very interesting verbiage Jericho was using? He would never say interim world champion. I'm going to be the interim world champion. I'm going to beat you, Moxley. You're the interim. The AEW world champion. He was the first one, and he's going to be the next one. It wasn't a bad promo that Jericho did, but I think was he trying to jockey himself into position to say that I'm challenging for the real world title because of what would happen at the end of it? It's just very interesting that he never used the phrase interim the whole time that he was talking about it. Did you, or am I now breaking things down too granularly?
I don't know, because I didn't pick up on it, but I wasn't paying all that close of attention. I thought Jericho did a pretty good promo, actually.
It was all about AEW world champion, not interim. Is he trying to, because, I mean, look, Punk versus Moxley is the shits for a return for Punk. As we mentioned, Punk should have a heel to fucking slay, to get even with, to right a wrong, whatever. Instead, this fucking sway-backed idiot is allegedly a babyface also. So maybe Jericho wants to insert and insinuate himself into that picture, thinking he'll get more pay-per-view main event time out of it if he's involved in that picture. But nevertheless, so they had a tornado tag team match. Said no tags. You don't have to tag. Everybody's already in the ring. Let's just go crazy. Andre Olio and Rush against the Lucha Brothers, Penthouse and Felix, with Rick Knox, the corpse referee, officiating, and I said, oh, hell no. What did I miss here? How many perfect 10s would Olga Corbett or Nadia Comaneci have gotten in this gymnastics exhibition?
If you're into this kind of match, you probably really like this kind of match. If you're not, you probably went to the kitchen to see if there was anything
cold in the fridge?
Yeah.
Well, good. So what was there in the fridge or the stove?
I don't remember what I ate that night.
French toast?
For dinner? So every now and then, we'll get diner for dinner. It's a wonderful treat.
So, in the backstage area, we had a douchebag convention. There's the Hardley boys, the Cucamonga kids themselves, Matt and Nick, and their handpicked stooge and errand boy, Brandon Cutlet, with the camera. And they go in to speak to Hangnail Adam Page. He didn't have the butterfly pants on. Maybe his wife needed to go to a PTA meeting that night. But he's sitting there with the Dork Order. And at least they've pared the Dork Order down to 4 of them now. Cabana's out of there. And they've eliminated a few of the undersized miscellaneous masked people. It still looks like a motley crew, but there's Little Brutus and the other masked guy and the other guy, I can't remember his name, and some other guy. So there was 4 of them. So the Hardy Boys, or the Hardley Boys.
Yeah, not the Hardy Boys, no.
No, I'm sorry. The Hardley Boys give the insincere apology to Adam Page, and they're sucking up to him. And I was trying to figure out, because it was so insincere and it was so disingenuous, and it was with the tone, that whiny, smarmy tone that they have in their voice, were they intentionally insincere in this apology because he was going to turn them down and that's the point? Or was it just bad acting and they were really trying to because they're supposed to be baby faces. So if you're supposed to be a baby face, then you would want the fans to be supportive of your request of Adam Page to be their partner in the 6-man tag team tournament. But since they sounded so douchebaggish about it and insincere, the fans would say, no, we want Adam Page to turn them down because obviously this is some kind of trap. But that doesn't make any sense because they just turned babyface. So it was either intentionally insincere or bad acting, but they apologize and suck up like a Lifetime movie or a high school romance. And I wrote, these people are all in their 30s. And so then Page responds that the Dork Order has been his friends and they've had his back. And the Cucamonga kids, they deserve somebody that's never turned on them or been apart from them. And he and them have had their, I don't know what the fuck. This was a lover's spat gone wrong. And when Page turns down their overtures to be their partner, then they kind of get their heads down and they go, okay, well, man, hey, text us. Yeah, we'll see you later. And then they get fake mad at Brandon Cutlet, cut camera. And now they got to go get Harpo, which is what they've been doing all along. The whole reason that this 6-man tournament is coming up is for them to bring Harpo back and play with their other friends from Pro Wrestling Chimpanzee and avoid having a money match on pay-per-view that would sell pay-per-views and draw income, and putting FTR over to establish the fans already view them as the top tag team in the company. That would make money. That would get interest. That would provide quality programming. So instead, they've chosen to do this silly, childish shit that makes no sense with the rest of the Lollipop Guild so that their trampoline cowboy friends can come back in and they can all have a show together and they can have more belts. Unprofessional, I think is the word I'd use. So, Brian, your thoughts on this interview? I'm sorry.
I don't know if I would ever call the Hangman unprofessional, let alone the Buckaroos. But no one cares. I mean, this is just bad acting.
Were they really trying, though? Do you think they were really trying to be baby faces and that's what it sounds like? Or, I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to concede that, actually. I mean, even though Adam Cole turned on them and Adam Cole was a heel and they're heels, other than that, they haven't really turned babyface yet.
But wait a minute, Adam Cole wasn't a heel. He switched heel when he fucking lost his mind in that interview with Punk and just ranted and raved and whined.
No, that's Adam Page. That's Adam Page.
Yeah. Oh, you said Adam Cole.
Because Adam Cole just turned on them. Right?
Well,
that would be
true.
the thing that made them babyface.
There's Pages and there's Adams and there's, I don't fucking know. You can't tell the players without a program. If anybody had any clearly defined role when they switched from it, we would know what they switched from.
It's so bad. And it's just like this fake, I guess that's really what I would call it. It's fake emotion. Because what they're trying to do is get fake emotion in their matches. And they do it with all these bad, I don't even know what you call it, wrestling soap opera segments. Really bad wrestling soap opera segments that are supposed to pay off with dramatic moments in their matches.
Well, they brought Jungle Boy out for color, although the way he talks with that personality, I'd term it more black and white. But as he got to the desk, here comes Dino Douche, who's now a babyface, I guess, because he's with Jungle Boy and blew off Christian Cage, and they revealed that Dino was just taking care of Christian so nobody else could get to him but Jungle Boy. And of course, we mentioned, well, maybe Jungle Boy owes poor Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman apologies. But so now they're giving Dino squash matches against job guys, which he gets over like this. And that should have been what they were doing 3 years ago. But we first saw Dino Douche when he's trying to have competitive matches with the rest of the gymnasts and doing backflips for no reason. And he looks like a fucking idiot. When he tries to have a competitive match, unless somebody smarter than him would lay it out for him and he'd listen to them and do just that, he looks like an idiot in every match. But in a squash match where his size and the choke slam and the power, whatever the fuck he does comes into play, this is where I can see that somebody that had not had a lot of experience with his other matches would think, I can make money with this guy. But he can't get out of his own way when he has a real match. He could have been a great Diesel-like bodyguard and then transition into smashing him over, and then you could have stolen probably a title match out of him or something, but that would have drawn, I mean. But anyway, Dino Douche gets the quick squash, and then Cage, Christian, from the back, pops up on the screen, starts cutting a promo on Jungle Boy, so Jungle Boy starts running to the back. He never had time to speak during the match, but he starts running to the back, and he comes into Christian Cage's frame, which now that begs the question, when anybody that wants to get their hands on somebody sees somebody on the screen, why don't they just go to the backstage fucking interview area? But the referees and security started holding him back, and then Dino comes in and beats up the security guards and headbutts Pat Buck, and Jungle Boy and Christian Cage are skirmishing. What's going on here? Do we still know, or do we still not yet know whatever the fuck is happening with who's the dinosaur? Whose side is the dinosaur really on? I'm wondering.
We did say last week he has not put his hands on Christian Cage yet.
And that just means that, well, you know, if Jungle Boy wants to be portrayed as a blithering idiot of a babyface, I hope he turns on him. Dino, I mean. Anyway, now you talked about the Miro promo earlier. Miro, he's doing a promo on Malachi Black. He says, hell is empty because all the devils are here. Now, here he is. Brian, I know a lot of people out there may not have had occasion to be on the set of a television shoot before. But Malachi Black, in his dark light, the spooky lighting they do, where he's in this undisclosed location in the dark, doing these interviews, and Miro, same thing. He's in this undisclosed location, kind of in the dark, and it's lit appropriately. They're not just standing out in a parking lot. They're not in a giant room. They're in a small room that has to be lit by a professional. Right? Most people would know that if they sat and thought about it.
Right.
So how the fuck, when Miro is in this dark, professionally lit room for this spooky atmospheric shoot, Does a slutted out Julia Hart just wander into the pre-tape and he didn't know she was there? She had to come from 10 feet away from him. I know it's dark in the room, but you would have seen that. Miro is doing his thing about God. He's still got issues with God. I don't know. They've got a complicated relationship, him and God. Hell's empty. All the devils are here. Then Julia Hart, and she looks great, but she says, embrace the gift. I did, because she went to the dark side with the Malachi and his friends. And Miro blows her off because, well, only one woman interests me, because he's got to keep Lana, I guess, happy at home. But he tells her some shit. And I thought, God, now they're like the WWE, they're hiring dramatic writers. Or is this, did Miro and Julia and some of the crew take a dramatic writing course and now they're auditioning shit? I don't know, but this was horse shit. What in the world is good? Miro gets over when he comes out and smashes himself over and he looks good and blah, 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 but you never see him. You hear all these promos. I'm waiting for the time when God shows up for the tag team match. But Julia Hart, who was just under the ring 45 minutes earlier and tripped poor Darby, is now invading the pre-tapes of Miro in a dark, enclosed room. Speaking of a dark, enclosed room, that's apparently where they've been keeping Mark Henry. We haven't seen him in months, but they let him out. He actually got a chance to be on television and did an interview with Powerhouse Hobbs. What did you think of Hobbs's promo here, Brian? His verbal ability, his speaking ability, does he project well? Does he have a good vocabulary? Does he have a deep, serious, stentorian voice? How did you like this promo?
I don't remember the promo as much as I remember him responding to the guys that came out there to confront him, and I thought he sounded pretty natural in that.
You know why you didn't remember the rest of the promo? That's the only line he got. He never got a chance to say a word.
Well, there you go.
Mark Henry is there with Powerhouse Hobbs, and before he says a goddamn syllable, utters a fucking sentence, any word, anything, here comes QT Marshall and what do they call them? The factory now. Can't be a Nightmare Factory anymore. The namesake departed. But his goons come in. And QT, who is also a heel, and his guys are heels, QT puts Hobbs over, talks good about him, which is probably a sign that they didn't trust Hobbs to do it himself, which is probably a sign that they've been spending too much time on teaching these goddamn 150-pound wet noodles how to do cartwheels instead of teaching this goddamn money-drawing ball player how to talk. But they say they're going to take care of Starks because they're pissed off at Starks like Hobbs is. And that's when Hobbs says, don't let your problem become my problem, and walks off. Now, there was nothing the matter with that line in a vacuum on its own, except that's the first words we get to hear this fucking guy say when last week, or whatever it was, 2 weeks ago, when he attacked Ricky Starks from behind and turned on his longtime tag team partner, he didn't say a word. We're still waiting to find out why it happened. Last week, Taz told us he didn't know, so he just dissolving the whole team. Now they've got an opportunity for Hobbs to come out there and channel a little hacksaw Butch Reed, who thought so much of him, or just get himself over and talk about, now Starks talks about his time. His time had come. His time was overdue. What about my time? And if it comes between your time and my time, Ricky, you ain't going to make it. I'm going to thump you, whatever the fuck. And then have the guys come in. But as it was, all you saw was a line that was more sleepwalking than surly, not particularly delivered with any menace. And he walked out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 words. That's what I didn't like about Hobbs's promo, is that he didn't get to do one. But we get to hear Daniel Garcia talk every fuck. Has anybody, can we get Maury Povich? Who's doing them these days? Is Maury still around? Paternity test.
No, he just retired.
DNA.
He retired.
Okay, who can do the DNA on Tony Khan and Daniel Garcia?
Oh, you stop. Come on.
No, I'm convinced now that Tony Khan has found out. I don't know if he's had affairs in Tony in his past, or if he's had professional relationships, or if he's paid off any people for NDAs, but some way or another, Daniel Garcia is his illegitimate son. You know, Brian, at this point in the particular television program I was watching, that's when I said, you know, normally I would be so bored that I would just be dropping off to sleep now, but this show is so disturbing and so shocking and so rattling, I'm going to need something to sleep tonight. That's what I said to myself. Did you say the same thing to yourself?
I don't remember at what point in the show, but I'm pretty sure I said that several times to myself.
Because you were delirious, probably. You were delirious, and you knew that you were going to need something to calm yourself down and get yourself to sleep after the shocking things that you were seeing. And you don't want to go with narcotics, folks. You don't want to go with the drugs. You don't want to go with the pharmaceuticals. You want to be more natural. You want stuff that's naturally sleep promoting with premium ingredients, and it's triple lab tested to make sure they've got all the drugs and the pharmaceuticals and the chemicals and everything out of there. Well, I guess you can't get chemicals out of everything because everything is made out of chemicals. But this is only good chemicals, folks. I'm talking about our friends at Beam and their best-selling Dream Powder, the healthy hot cocoa that will give you a fabulous night's sleep. Because, Brian, and you know this, you know it as well as I do, you're a statistician. 98% of people surveyed fall asleep faster when taking Beam Dream. 99% of people experience better sleep quality. And 100% of the people could book better than Tony Khan while they're asleep. That's what Beam Dream Powder will do for you, folks. You don't want to have poor sleep. It causes weight gain and mood issues and poor mental health, lower productivity. You do not want to lower your productivity. You want to increase it. If you sleep less than 6 to 7 hours a night, you reduce your white blood cell count. And if you fuck up your white blood cell count, then you got to start all over again from scratch. And by the time you count 1,000 or so of those white blood cells, and you mess up, you got to start from scratch, 1, 2, it's just time consuming. So, keep track of your white blood cells with the Beam Dream Powder. All you got to do is just mix it up into the hot water or the milk. Milk gives it a little better body. And enjoy it before bedtime. Or any time for that matter. Any time that you'd like to just drop off with very little notice and be unconscious for a significant amount of time. Just take a gulp of this. Just don't be behind any heavy machinery. And try not to drink a cup of this before sexual activity. Because that could hurt some people's feelings if you drop off right in the middle of it. Anyway, if you don't love it, also, this is another one of these suckers that are going to give you your money back. So it's on the honor system. You know, a lot of people are just throwing money away these days.
They're not suckers. They're confident in their product.
Well, but a lot of people are liars these days. So you can be confident in your product. It is the greatest product in the world. But to come out and say that they're guaranteeing you if you don't like it, you're going to get your money back, well, that just opens people up to misrepresentation. And there's a bunch of people out there that will lie and try to have their Beam and their money back too, and that's just not fair. So for a lot of these crooked people, I say they shouldn't do this, but Beam is so nice. The Beam people are so nice and friendly, they're going to do this, even if you're lying. But just remember, what goes around comes around, and one of these days, Beam will come down on you. Folks, right now, for a limited time only, you can get $20 off when you go to Shop Beam, that's BEAM, shopbeam.com, JCE. Use the code JCE at checkout for $20 off of a delicious serving, multiple servings, as a matter of fact, of the Beam Dream Powder. It's cocoa, and you'll be cuckoo over it. Beam.
Well, you can't say that. That's another cereal's catchphrase.
This is not a cereal.
Well, that's true.
So I got no problem here.
All right,
You'll be cuckoo for the cocoa.
No, don't say that. Just to be safe.
This cocoa is not caca.
You could say you'll be cuckoo for the Beam. That's fine, but the other one's a little too close to home.
Well, then you'll be cuckoo for the Beam Dream Cocoa, which is certainly not caca.
That's right. Certainly not.
So let's get to some more caca. Well, now that we've had a good night's sleep, I woke up, the show was still on, and the Carpenters are still banging, and I got a chance to see Jay Lethal. Well, now, this is quite a handsome surprise here. We actually had a chance to see Jay Lethal, but is he wrestling? No. He's barely talking. Sanjay Dutt now gets to do all the talking. And they're all dressed up. Jay looks good. The giant pinhead looks like the giant pinhead. And Sanjay looks like he raided Johnny Polo's closet, I think. I don't know. But Sanjay needs to concentrate on the office work. I like Sanjay. He was a good wrestler. And he's had a lot of, as we talked about last week on the show, since he's been promoted, he's got a lot of experience working for Impact, Global Force, whatever in the office. And I got no problem with that, but it's coming off like he's trying to be, as you said last week, the term may be an underneath manager. And Zippy needs training. Jay Lethal needs a push. I mean, they've about dropped this ball completely. They had the opportunity, like they've had with so many other guys they brought in that have talent. Just start using him the right way from the beginning. Don't bring him in. Don't bring any of these guys in and beat them 3 or 4 times on television and then stick them in an angle. He's had one win on television, I think, in the last, 2 months or more, and that was against the fucking mascot. And now they're cutting a promo. They want one more match with Wardlow. Oh, my God. Of course, as soon as those words come out of Jay's mouth, instant music. Here comes Wardlow. And Wardlow agrees to it, that Lethal will get another shot at him, but right now I'm going to kick all 3 of your asses. And as he's headed that way to do that, FTR's music plays. And they, of course, get a big ovation, as Jim Ross calls them, the hottest tag team in the business. And I'm sure that the Cucamonga kids somewhere in the bowels of the building were sticking their pins in a Jim Ross voodoo doll.
What do you think Excalibur was doing?
Well, he was sitting there shitting himself. I guarantee you, every time that Jim Ross tells the truth that the FTR is the best team in the business and the best team in the company, you could shove a lump of coal up Excalibur's ass and come out with a 10-carat diamond. He's like, are they going to blame me for that? So none of this makes sense, but at least we get to see FTR. So FTR and Wardlow step into the ring, and the heels step out of the ring on the other side. And Sanjay goes down on his hands and knees and looks under the ring, flips up the apron skirt, looks under the ring, can't find what he's looking for, stands up and tells his guys that, and goes to the other side of the ring where he's trying to look for whatever the fuck they were supposed to bring out from under the ring. And then Lethal rolls in and just takes the big rig from FTR, and he rolls out and the heels limp off. So what was supposed to be under the ring? They've got a goddamn 7-foot-plus tall giant that didn't touch anybody or make a move to help in any way. And Jay Lethal is the one who gets the shit kicked out of him again. Come in. So I'm just wondering, what the fuck is going on here? Your thoughts?
If I had to guess, I would think that they're hammering.
I'm talking about on the television program.
I don't know. It's either they're setting them up for a 6-man match, which, based on the way Tony Khan's been booking, will probably be Friday night on a Rampage or something. Or he just wanted to use an underneath heel group to get these guys out there to get a pop. The problem is, on the face of it, you would think, I think some people who don't know better would think, Jim Cornette can't complain about this. His favorite guys are out there. FTR, Wardlow, Jay Lethal. Like you said, Jay Lethal's been used a certain way since he got there. It's hard to take him seriously, even if you want to overlook that. Sanjay could talk, but it's not treat me seriously.
Yeah.
It's just, he could talk. I can't say that he can't, but comes across kind of hokey. The Giant's just there. He hasn't really done anything. And if Jay Lethal could talk, he doesn't need someone else doing the talking. Wardlow's been completely wasted. If they're going to have him with FTR, at least, I don't even know at least they're continuing. They never had a fight with the Pinnacle, those people in it.
But what do any of these people have to do with each other? And before it gets started, we should know that. And with poor Wardlow, again, now it's just like, where are we going to put Wardlow this week? They were screaming and throwing babies in the air for him last month, and now he's just floating around with underneath guys and no direction, no purpose. Tony Schiavone was in the back with the Jericho appreciators. Are you just loving how Anna Jay now has gone out of her mind and just leaves the interviews to grab and choke out different members of the production crew? Like that's a thing that would happen, or it would happen more than once before somebody put a stop to it, or it's in any way presented as convincing. None of those things are the case. And she's screaming while she, it's like Mr. Backlund 30 years ago when he'd go out of his mind, but at least he really was somebody who could choke your ass out.
Can you imagine if next week she went up to the cameraman like, I'm going to choke you in. And he's just like, I've seen this twice now. He just punches her right in the face.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, how about that? Take that home with you too. Boom, while you're at it. You ain't going to choke me. But then, Brian, they almost got something right. If they could have left it alone, this was perfect. Ricky Starks in a match against Aaron Solo with Comarato and a Go-Go and Cole Carter, who doesn't fit the chant, and QT, of course. There, some or all of them are always on the periphery. And Ricky Starks has a single match. Now he's just switched babyface, we assume. And he never really did get, again, like everybody else, there was no beginning to his run in AEW. He was just there and in matches against top guys, kind of, without ever getting over first. So now they've decided after 2 or 3 years of having these guys in the company, they're going to start giving them the matches to get over that they were supposed to have when they first came in. So Starks has a match with Solo. Old Cole Carter, who was the guy now we found out that got fired from Tony D'Angelo's crew over at NXT, he gets kicked out of ringside for interfering.
Wait, I didn't know that. That's where he was?
That's him.
Oh,
that's where he was, yeah.
Jesus, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's another guy. He looks like a male model for a high school fucking, here's where you get your uniforms and your Letterman's jackets, and here's this cute little model.
And he was one of Tony D'Angelo's. He was one of the phony Italian businessmen?
Italian businessmen. Yes, the businessmen. Anyway, he got kicked out of ringside. Solo got a touch of heat. Starks made a comeback. They did a nice little spot where Starks avoided a spear and hit him or something, hit him with a spear. Boom, 1, 2, 3. And I was like, nice. After 3 years, Ricky Starks gets a dominant win on television. He's starting off in the right fashion. He's beating a heel. And they couldn't leave it alone. Here comes Comarato with a chair, but he swings the chair in a half-hearted fashion, and when Starks ducks and he misses, he just drops the chair. And then Starks hits a spine buster. And then the other heels get in and they stop him. They stop Starks, but before they can get him good, he escapes and runs off. He ran away. So they did something right for once. They give Starks an underneath guy as an opponent. He beats him in he's a heel, so he's going to get to beat a heel in fairly convincing fashion. He gets his hand up in the air, and then the heels jump for an afterbirth. And then they put Starks in the position where I don't care if there's 17 of them, he ran away from job guys. He ran away from underneath talent. A guy that just switched babyface a week ago. And not even against he wasn't even running from the guys that attacked him and caused him to switch babyface. He's running from the Mulkeys. They shouldn't have touched him after the 3 count. They should have taken their ass whipping and gone back to the locker room, because that's the way you get a babyface over. That happens regularly. Then, when somebody jumps that babyface after the match and attempts to get even with him, it means something. But if it happens in every single match, as it does in this fucked up Smart Mark company, then you make your baby faces look like idiots for raising their hand and looking at the camera instead of keeping an eye on the heels that they ought to know by now are going to jump them from behind, because it happens unfailingly in every single match. Tony Schiavone was in the back with Pockets and the Puddin' Gang, and 3 guys walked in with no identification whatsoever. I don't believe we've ever seen them before. They were not mentioned by name at the top of it, but the guy in the suit wants to make a deal with Pockets. I assume I don't know what kind of business he would be in that he wants to make a deal with Pockets. Perhaps he wants Pockets to walk his dog. I'm not sure. Then, I was about to say, at the end of it, he was finally revealed to be Arya Daivari, Sean Daivari's brother, and he claims to be the richest man in wrestling. Fucking hell. The other 2 guys that were with him, we never found out who they were. What were you going to say?
The big guy that was with him with the tattoos on his neck, that was the guy that they released from NXT, Parker Boudreaux.
Okay.
That was him.
So he was supposed to be a hotshot amateur and a big prospect, and they got rid of him pretty quick. I can only assume he either impressed upon them that he could learn nothing or he had a bad attitude, because you don't let hotshot amateurs that look like that out of developmental that quickly unless they're hopeless, do you? I mean, even with...
You wouldn't think.
Well, even with the firings that Vince was making, he gave some of those people more opportunity to... because they never put this guy on television. Anyway, so apparently now Sean Daivari's brother, we're expected to believe, is the richest man in wrestling. So they bring these new guys in, they don't even give them a chance, because it's just goofy and see-through from the start. And they're going to be dealing with Pockets and the Puddin' Gang. So there you go. More firmly preliminary talent coming into the company. Madison Rayne and Jane Cargill. Did you watch this match, Brian? You're a big Cargill fan. You're one of the Janeites.
I did watch this match, yes.
From what little I could stomach of it, do you think the coach needs a coach?
I am surprised. I'm surprised that she's the coach.
Yeah.
When they announced it, I was a little surprised. And then they immediately put her in this little mini feud with Jade on TV. And Jade may have looked more impressive than the coach did.
Hey, I mean, I've never had a crossword with Madison Rayne. I haven't seen her in years, worked with her in TNA. She's got a lot of experience. I never mistook her for the second coming of Mildred Burke, nor did I think she was a, Penelope Pitstop. She's somewhere in the middle there, but this did not work. The cake did not rise in this particular oven. And it was not pretty. But so, I mean, most of their girls, any coaching would be better than none, but nevertheless, the finish of this, a girl with blue hair jumped up on the apron. I believe it was Kiara Hogan.
Yeah.
And then Madison Rayne grabbed Kiara Hogan, But Jane from behind went for the big kick to the head, but Madison Rayne moved, and Cargill's foot came somewhere around 2 feet from Kiera Hogan's face, and she took a bump for it. And then at that point, they turned around, and after Madison Rayne had just ducked out of the way, so Jane kicks her own minion off the apron of the ring, they turned around, did a little do-si-do, and Jane just hit her finish. Boom, 1, 2, 3, beat Madison Rayne. So that was abrupt, but at least it was over. And then somehow into the ring in disguise came Athena / Ember Moon. And she had a sloppy fight with Jane Cargill there, and that was that segment. And I wrote down, my God, there's almost 40 minutes left in this show. Thankfully, or not thankfully, it was all taken up by one match. But do you have any closing comments on Miss Cargill and this exhibition?
No.
All righty then. The main event that we've all been waiting for what Chris Jericho termed the AEW World Title, for what everybody else has termed the AEW Interim World Title, because there's still a real champion floating around out there somewhere, CM Punk. And Jericho is going to fight Plumber Moxley for this prestigious interim championship. And do you think Jericho's heard any of the criticism? He took Judas away from him. He didn't play Judas. He switched up the music. He didn't want him singing along. Or does he want us to think that he didn't want him singing along, but really he missed it more than he misses his mother's kiss?
I think it was more that he was trying to play up that this is the mid-90s ECW Chris Jericho. That's why he was wearing what he was wearing. He looked good out there, too. I got to say, I like this version of Chris Jericho more than every other version we've seen in quite a long time. But I think that's why the music, I could be wrong, but I would think that's why the music specifically was what it was.
So we want to go back to remind people when Chris Jericho was in an underground promotion that never actually broke even or made a profit and was on limited television, when just several years later he was the world champion for the biggest promotion in the history of the world. That's not the area of time we want to remember. We want to go back to ECW. Okie dokie.
Everyone loves a struggling young artist.
So is Plumber Moxley, who came through the crowd again, and they had the big fight introductions and et cetera, to eat up some time because Jericho was fucking gassed through this. If they'd have tried to go 30, I think there may have been a fatality. But is Moxley going to go ahead and trademark giving people the finger? Because that's now he's going to blatantly just say, fuck it, I'm embracing this. I'm a Stone Cold Steve Austin cosplayer. I'm going to go all the way with it. How many fingers did we see from Moxley on national television in this one, not segment, but one episode, one match on the program of a couple of segments?
Well, he is a rebel. He's from Cincinnati. And one of the things that is interesting when you bring this up is...
The Cincinnati Rebels. I've just got that one.
Yeah, Mitchell Guzin over there. If he went to trademark giving people the finger, do you think he would bleed in the process?
Well, he does when you look crossways at him. He bleeds. He just erupts in blood. And you're right, he's a rebel and he'll never be any good. He's a rebel and he'll never act like he should. They tried to start out wrestling a world title style match. I will give them that. They tried. There was the plan to do it. They were trying to imitate Flair and Steamboat, Funk and Briscoe. There were arm drags. There was wrestling involved. A world championship style match from long ago when people still did such a thing. But one guy's a 50-year-old wannabe rock star and the other one looks like a mechanic from Secaucus. So, I mean, Jericho, were you talking about him looking good in that physically with the hair's not dyed a noticeable dark shade that doesn't match him anymore, and he's lost his weight. But goddamn, was this good wrestling? Are my standards just too high these days?
I didn't say that. It was certainly a spectacle. I mean, once you realize that Jericho busted his face up again the second match in a row you've seen that, I started feeling bad for the guy. I really did.
Well, but he keeps doing it to himself. Here's the first. He wasn't the first one busted open, though. They try to wrestle. I was giving him points for effort, but then Jericho makes an obvious show to everybody and the camera of tearing the earring out of Moxley's ear. Well, good. Why was he wearing it? That doesn't give me sympathy for a babyface, because first thing you learn is don't wear jewelry in a goddamn wrestling match or a fight. But they go to the break on that because basically he tears the earring out of Moxley's ear. Moxley rolls out on the floor selling the ear. And they go to the break, and apparently Moxley in the break or somehow bladed his ear. And he was bleeding profusely from what was alleged to be a torn out earring, to the point where Regal was on commentary and had to say, well, you bleed more from, I can't do his accent, you bleed more from the ear because of all the capillaries and the cartilage or whatever. They were trying to explain how the fuck you could tear an earring out of a guy's ear and have his head half covered in blood. It was ridiculous. And again, now they try to wrestle some more, but with all the blood and being on this show, it looks like, and being Moxley, it looks like every other garbage match you see. And the longer it went, the more it looked like Jericho was underwater. I mean, he was, again, taking the shortcuts where you don't follow through with everything. And I understand age is a factor, but he was in quicksand. And did you see the figure 4 around the post?
I did.
Did you know what was wrong with it? Or are you that versed in the figure 4 around the post?
What was wrong with it?
Everybody, if you want to go back and look at this, when Jericho pulls Moxley out like he's going to crotch him on the post, right? He pulls his crotch right to the ring post. Jericho's standing on the floor. And remember, Bret Hart patented the figure 4 around the ring post. And he used to do it, I said, in the WWF, guys like Shawn or Austin or whatever. And what he'd do is he would clue the referee in to stand behind him like he was trying to get Bret to break it up. But actually, when Bret throws his second leg up over to get the figure 4 on, if the referee was not behind him, he would fall backwards and crack the back of his head on the floor. And that's what he claimed in the Goldberg match happened before the kick, was that he told Goldberg to hold on to that leg and hold him so he could ease himself down. And Goldberg didn't do it. And Bret cracked the back of his head on the floor. Well, in this case, Jericho pulls Moxley around the post, and he put the wrong leg up first. He did it backwards, and there was no way to save it. Bret would put the left leg up in between the guy's right leg and the ring post and hold on to that as he crossed it over, and then with his right leg, he would jump up and hook it over the guy's foot and apply the figure 4 and fall backwards. Jericho put the figure 4 leg up over the guy's foot first and then tried to put the left leg up, and there's no way to get it in. And he just fell backwards and didn't have a hold and cracked his head on the floor. So it's completely backwards, and it botched it. And then somewhere he couldn't figure out you could tell when he put the wrong leg up first, he was looking and he couldn't figure it out. And he said, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. Right. But somehow after this, within just a short time after this, Moxley was bleeding from the head also. Did you ever see Moxley get hit with anything or take a head shot that would cause him to bleed from the head as well as the ear?
I wasn't sure where any of the blood was coming from at various points, because at one point, and it may have been the one you referenced earlier, Moxley had it by his forehead, and they were explaining that, oh, that's coming from his ear. And I was like, how the hell would it go from his ear to his forehead? Even if it shot out, it wouldn't go that way.
Well, it was he laid down, if you blade your ear, obviously the ear does bleed, And if you blade your ear, it's going to bleed more than if you pull a fucking earring out of the lobe. He bladed it somewhere, and it was bleeding around his jaw toward his mouth area, and that got on the side of his head. But then later on, he was plainly covered in blood on the top of his head from a different source. Meanwhile, I wrote, this has taken forever already. We're 12 minutes into this fucking thing. And then they do, Mox at one point, he throws multiple fake punches to the vicinity of Jericho's head. It's like they get down close and they just throw stuff and they think the camera will never see this. And then Jericho, this was the one that got me. Jericho goes and pulls one of the turnbuckle pads off. And of course, the referee is Dawn Aubrey Stevens. So she goes to put it back on, and he goes and he pulls another one off. And she's fucking with that, and it falls to the floor. So she goes out to the floor to get the loose turnbuckle pad. And JR said something that, well, I'm not a fan of the referee going to the floor, because right then, while the referee has gotten out of the ring to retrieve a turnbuckle pad that one of the participants has untied, and it's fallen out there. I mean, there's no ring crew. There's no production assistants. It falls on the referee alone to go get that thing. Jericho motions to the crowd. Sammy Guevara is suddenly in the crowd and has a baseball bat. And he throws it into the ring, and my God, it wasn't like Jericho fumbled it. It's like he would have had to have had a 9-foot vertical leap to get this thing. Sammy overshot him with a baseball bat all the way over his head, behind him in the ring and out on the other side of the floor. Now, Jericho's got to run out to the floor to get it, and they get a shot of Sammy, and he's going, oh, shit. It was a perfect, oh, shit, what have I done? And the referee, old Dawn Aubrey Stevens, is walking back and forth to and fro with her back turned to the entire ring, carrying loose turnbuckle pads so she doesn't have to see this while she's waiting for Jericho to chase this goddamn itinerant bat down. And Moxley staggering around, looking over his shoulder, waiting to get hit with it. If anybody thinks I'm lying, just go back and watch this. And finally, Jericho uses a baseball bat like everybody does, grabs one end in one hand and one end in the other hand, and pokes Moxley in the head with it and covers him and gets a 2 count. And then Moxley, after being hit with a baseball bat in the head, comes back and gets a choke, and Jericho is so gassed that he just twisted basically and to shoot him off, and Moxley runs he runs 10 feet to the corner and runs his own head into the exposed turnbuckle from a shrug. It wasn't a shoot off, it was a shrug off. But somehow his head made a beeline like there was a tracking device. And then Jericho hits the Judas. So now Moxley's been run into an exposed turnbuckle and hit with the former world champion's finish that always gets its man, 2 count. So then Jericho gets the title belt, now this time in front of the referee, in the ring with the belt. It's okay, he's actually not going to hit the guy. That's how they reconcile this nonsense. He's not going to hit the guy, so it shouldn't be a DQ. Overlooking that for 80 years, if you were caught in the ring with a foreign object, whether you used it or not, it was a DQ. So he gets the belt, he staggers to Moxley, Moxley sidesteps, and Jericho runs his own face into the exposed turnbuckle that he's the one that took the pad off of it, so he knows better than anybody that it was bare, and he busts his own head open hard way. Wide open, gushing blood. And now as he hits the goddamn buckle and he comes out, Moxley gets a choke, and now there's Jericho realizing he's already bleeding, and he's putting his hand up to his head like, what the fuck did I do? A lot of people are going to say, oh, that's where he was getting his color. No, he was already colored. This was a flat palm like, oh my God, is my brain going to fall out? And Moxley's got the choke, and Jericho gets out of that, and he gets the walls of Jericho, or the Lion Tamer, since we're going retro. And Moxley gets out of that and gets a choke back and holds it forever. And both of them are motionless. And all the intensity is drained out of the thing. And then Jericho tapped out. And by this point, all of Moxley's blood that he looked like he'd been goddamn thrown through a screen door and was in little pieces, it's all dried up, and Jericho is taking a bath in his blood from his unexpected hard way. Have I got this so far? Are you following me here, Brian?
Oh, yeah, I watched it. I saw the whole thing.
So then here comes Sammy Hagar.
Jake Hagar.
No, Sammy Hagar. Sammy Guevara and Jake Hager.
Oh, that's right.
Sammy Hagar. They come in, and Jericho has got a T-shirt from somebody and is holding a fucking compress on his goddamn head before he bleeds out and starts seeing the angel Gabriel in another life. And they're trying to get heat on Moxley. But here comes Claudio and Ortiz. Santana nowhere to be seen. Is he still around? Here comes Yuta and Kingston. So now they have this giant fake fight where everybody's throwing fake punches and fake kicks. And the baby faces outnumber the heels 5-3. But then suddenly here comes Daniel Garcia and Daddy Mac Daddy and Cool Hand Luke, and they do more fake fighting. Have you ever seen more supposedly trained professional wrestlers throw more fake-looking shit that you can see daylight through a mile away than these brawls that they have on AEW? It's embarrassing.
It happens a lot. Especially, and it's with the same people over and over, too.
And finally, Jericho gets the belt, the title belt, and they hold Moxley up. And they hold Moxley up. And they hold Moxley up because the sound man's trying to find that button. And finally, like Mussolini, thank fuck he's back. Because if I had to watch any more of these shows without him, I was going to crack. Here comes Punk. And for 45 seconds, again, we were transported back to a wrestling program. Because here comes CM Punk, the returning champion, the conquering hero. He's running down the ramp. The people are blowing. It's a big pop. He makes a big comeback. All the heels bump for him. It's laid out perfectly. Old Cool Hand Luke meets him in the entranceway. One shot and a big bump. And Sammy tries to plancha over the ropes, and Punk sidesteps him and grabs him and shovels him into the stairs. Rolls into the ring, backdrops Hager over the top, lays waste to the other guy with the fat face or whoever the fuck it was. And then Jericho takes 2 bumps and he bails out. So he went up the pecking order. And finally Jericho's gone and Punk rules the ring and the heels are backpedaling. And that part was great. It was executed well. It was laid out well. It got a pop. It got the people up after all this dreariness. And then there's the little matter of the current interim champion sitting in the fucking ring. And except I don't understand why Moxley was, while Punk was keeping an eye on the heels, Moxley is behind Punk, not looking at Punk, but acknowledging that he knows Punk is behind him and making faces of somebody like, yeah, I know what's going on. Whatever, like, I think he was trying to kill the deal. I don't think he likes having, I think since Moxley believes he's a blood-drinking vampire and a goddamn crazy pain freak lunatic.
I will come to your house and there'll be glass and blood everywhere.
Yeah, I'll come to your house and stick thumbtacks in your elbow. I don't think he liked the idea of being saved by a bigger star that's more popular and draws more money and is more accomplished performer, because he was making faces behind it. And that didn't fucking set well to me, because it looked like he was diminishing or making mockery of what was going on instead of trying to get it over. But nevertheless, he stands up, he turns around, they go face to face, Punk and Plumber Moxley, and Moxley gives Punk the finger in his face and walks off. If we hadn't seen 6 or 7 other fingers on this show alone from Moxley and others, it would have meant something. But as it was, the end of the show was Moxley slunk off to snake a drain, and Punk got a standing ovation in the crowd, who now has reason to live because Punk is back on television. Your thoughts on this whole deal, Brian Last?
The match was really something, and I want to ask you a question after we're done to a review that relates to all this, but, it started with a gruesome match and it ended with a gruesome match. I don't know if CM Punk saved...
There's another thing. Why in the world would they do the fucking blood in the first segment when they knew they were going to have, even though part of the blood in the last segment, the world title match, wasn't planned, they still had some planned. Why the fuck? Why can they not control themselves? I'm just going to say one more thing, and I'll let you have it. I'll be goddamned if there was a wrestling show in history where another manager on the card was going to bleed. I'll be goddamned if I would have got juice. I mean, I don't understand why they don't have a problem with going out there and cutting themselves open when somebody else has already done it, so it doesn't even mean anything. Go ahead. What the fuck?
I don't know if CM Punk saved Moxley from Jericho as much as he saved all of us from this show. When he came out there, the pop, the reaction, it was like a real star has finally returned to the show. Based on the way they left the ring, it makes me wonder if they're setting up Moxley and Claudio and that group as heels, which can only be better than them as babyfaces. I'm glad Danielson's not there, because at least he's not a part of their thing.
Is he hurt again, or where was he?
I think they're getting over that he got choked out by Garcia, right? He's going to speak on the Friday show.
Oh, good God. That should be best left never spoken of again to where people would forget it.
Punk being back makes me look forward to hearing what he's going to say next week on the show, thinking he probably is going to have to say something. FTR appearing on the show randomly again this week makes me hopeful that maybe they'll appear randomly next week as well. But there's been a lot of crap on these shows. It's been a rough slog for a while now watching AEW TV. And the question I wanted to ask you, it just so happened this episode had the first match and the last match like this, but specifically every single Moxley match lately, and there's been other guys too. Jericho now, he couldn't have predicted he was going to break his nose. But
or bust his head open in this one.
Are we seeing too much blood? Is there way too much blood on this show?
Yes. And here's something else. A lot of people are going, oh, Cornette, you pick and choose. Why, Starrcade 86 or the Great American Bash such and such, well, everybody bled. It was horrible. Well, I agree with you. It was too much. Dusty was a little too much with Juice. And that was even 35 years ago when it was a different animal. But those shows were the biggest show of the year, with most of the angles blowing off and culminating, and stipulation matches that you didn't see on a regular basis because they were the big shows. But if you, and a lot of people will go back and, well, look at the house shows. I'm watching this house show on YouTube and this guy's bleeding and that guy's, well, yeah, because the only people that saw the house show in Oklahoma City were the people in Oklahoma City that were there and bought a ticket that night. On television, with the biggest audience, the mass audience, you didn't have blood on TV unless it was going to mean something, unless it was integral to an angle or starting a program. And then depending on how, fucking anal the local athletic commission was, or if the television station had specifically said, well, we don't want any of that stuff or whatever, you did what you could do. And a lot of places, blood was accepted on television wrestling because it wasn't a constant thing. You didn't see it all the time for the same reason that it meant more when you saw it sparingly, because then it registered and it was a shocking occurrence and it added to the angle to draw money. You didn't want to test your goddamn television station every week. What's the chance that in some fucking old blue-haired woman in Roanoke sees blood 2 weeks in a row and think, well, they're going to ruin my children's fucking psyche, and calls and complains or whatever. It's just meaningless. They're doing this on television every week, and the biggest audience sees blood constantly. So if you go to do it on a pay-per-view or at a big show, it's no departure. It's no different. It's no more violent. It's not like, oh, shit, I'm glad we paid for this pay-per-view because we couldn't see this on TV. It's too much. No. The TV is as goddamn gruesome and gory and fucking zany as any other show you could put on that you would charge money for people to see. So and not even getting into, as we've mentioned many times, the advertisers. And if Tony was smart, he could position himself to where at least this company is one that the TV stations could go to in a couple of years to tell the WWE, well, if you don't play ball with us and give us a deal, we'll put these other yahoos on. At least they're a negotiating tool. He could get closer. Something strange may happen. He could end up with a network slot. But not if the network says, well, we would try to make these other guys bid against the WWE, but goddamn, we can't fucking show that circus sideshow geek porn on our network. So I don't understand. It's smart mark booking. They're all smart marks. The boys are smart marks and the owner's a smart mark. And what are they going to be doing in 2 years from now this time? Summer of 2024. Loser must be disemboweled on live television and the entrails made into birthday party decorations for their opponent's children. What the fuck?